Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the regularly scheduled meeting of the Board of Public Works for today, Monday, July 8th, 2019.
Commissioner Cabello, James, and Caloza are present. President James, you do have a quorum. May we start with Bureau introductions, please, starting with Bureau of Sanitation.
Good morning, Anne-Marie Amson from Bureau of Sanitation.
Good morning, I'm Larry Hsu from the Bureau of Engineering.
Good morning, Lance Oishi with the Bureau of Street Services.
Good morning, Kago Tujian, Street Lighting.
Good morning, Ted Jordan, Public Works General Counsel.
Fernando Campos, Executive Officer. President James, we did not receive any speaker cards under general public comment. We also do not have any commentary under the Neighborhood Council comment section. We did receive a speaker card on item number 1 for today's agenda.
Okay, then we'll close general public comment. Agenda item number 4, specifications submitted for board adoption and authorization to advertise for the invitation of bids. This is in Council District 11 for the Capital Improvement Project. It's a 2481. It's a rebid. Hyperion Water Reclamation Plant Service Water Facility Improvements. The estimate's $3,827,000. The bid receipt date is August 21st, 2019. Is there a second to my motion that we approve agenda item number 4 forthwith by Commissioner Cabello? Any objection? Excuse me, without objection, we will do so. Agenda item number 3, there's been a request to withdraw agenda item number 3. And that was by the...
This is a request by the contractor. They indicated that they no longer would like to do the subcontractor substitution. Therefore, we are requesting to withdraw the item.
Okay. Then we will withdraw agenda item number 3. Our meeting minutes are from the meeting of Monday, May 20th, 2019. Commissioner Cabello has seconded by motion that we approve the meeting minutes from that day. Is there any objection? Without objection, we'll approve the meeting minutes from the meeting of May 20th, 2019. Dr. Campos, the one that we don't have a speaker card for is the contract renewal amendment number 1 on waste management El Sobrante landfill for municipal solid waste disposal services, correct?
That is correct, yes.
Okay, then we'll go ahead and call that item as agenda item number 2. Recommending that the board first approve and forward the report with transmittals to the mayor and the city council with the request that the Board of Public Works be authorized to execute amendment number 1 to the personal services contract with USA Waste of California, doing business as Waste Management El Sobrante Landfill for disposal services for residual municipal solid waste, and to exercise the first 5-year renewal option contained in the contract. And secondly, authorize myself or 2 members of the board to execute the contract amendment upon approval by the mayor and city council. Ms. Romano.
Good morning, Mr. President James, Commissioners Cabello, Garcia, Caloza. Oops, no, I'm sorry. That's just how I write it. Commissioners Cabello, Caloza, and President James, Bureau Representatives, City Attorney and executives, I'm so sorry. Rowena Romano, Senior Environmental Engineer with LA Sanitation and Environment. Item before you today is the authority to execute amendment number 1 to contract 123735 with USA Waste of California, doing business as Waste Management El Sobrante. The original contract was executed on March 17, 2014 with a 5-year contract with 2 5-year renewal options, as well as a month-to-month for up to 6 months. On March 13, 2019, we came to the board and requested a month-to-month extension up to September 16, 2019, while we finalized the contract and the renewal option. Waste Management El Sobrante is contracted for 300 to 600 tons per day. However, more recently, with the stipulated order of abatement over Sunshine Canyon landfill, we have been using them for up to 1,500 tons per day, which is transferred out of our Clark's facility. The stipulated order of abatement over SCL, Sunshine Canyon landfill, was lifted on the last day of June 2019, and we are now in the discussion with them on how to move forward. LA Sand and Waste Management have negotiated the amendment and a contract for the next 5 years. The amendment will provide Waste Management with a one-time 10% increase in their rates with no CPI adjustment until July 2020, next fiscal year. The main reason for Waste Management request was due to the demand of disposal capacity in the region. And in order to continue with these essential services for our city, LASAN is recommending the authorization of the amendment for the next 5 years. LASAN is also in a new request for proposal process, and we're currently reviewing those proposals. We hope to have those executed before June 2021, which is when the Sunshine Canyon landfill contracts expire. So there will be no impact to the general funds, as these services will be funded through the Solid Waste Resource Revenue Fund.
Rowena, this is the first 5-year renewal?
Yes, we've already had the 5 years, so we have 2 5-year renewal.
Okay, and this is the
options.
first of 2.
Yes, sir.
Am I understanding that we're not going to need to use the second of 2?
It depends. We're in the RFP process for these types of contracts, so we're evaluating them at the same time. So if we feel that this contract as it is still better, then
Depends on
what
what
is
the
being
RFP
proposed-
produces.
Yes, sir.
Got it. Okay, Commissioner Cabello?
Thank you, President James. Just a quick question. What is the timeline for the RFP process?
Yes, so we put it out on the street last year, but we had to do a reopening just this past April. So our deadline is to get here before June 2021.
Why the reopening?
The reopening was because of the responsiveness of the proposers. Yes.
Got it. I'm happy to move this, President James.
Okay,
There are no
thank
further
you.
questions.
Seconded by Commissioner Davis. Any objection? Without objection, we'll adopt agenda item number, what number is this one, Dr. Campos?
This is number 2.
Number 2. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any issues sending number 2 forthwith? We'll send number 2 forthwith. Why don't we go ahead and adjourn the regular meeting, and let's handle the special meeting because the other one's going to have a hearing attached. Let's get that taken care of. So we'll adjourn the regular meeting and go to the special meeting. Dr. Campos on the special.
Absolutely. Fernando Campos, Executive Officer. Roll call for the special meeting for the Board of Public Works. Today is Monday, July 8, 2019. We have Commissioner Cabello, Commissioner James, Commissioner Davis, and Commissioner Caloza. President James, you do have a quorum. We do not have any speaker cards under general public comment, no commentary under the neighborhood council commentary, and also no speaker cards on the special agenda number 1.
Okay, well, we'll close public comment and neighborhood council category of commentary on it. Agenda item number 1 on the special is in Council District 11. A requested bid extension, capital improvement program, Venice Pumping Plant variable frequency drives numbers 1 and 4 replacement, and Bologna Creek Pumping Plant VFD replacement, recommending that the board first grant the request to extend the bid date from July 10th, 2019 to July 24th, 2019, obviously a 2-week extension, and secondly, instruct the city engineer to advise all prospective bidders of the board's action by addendum. Mr. Cirillo, you're here on a special one. Go ahead, sir.
Good morning, Mike Cirillo with the Bureau of Engineering. So this is a contract, as you mentioned, to replace the VFDs at the Venice pumping plant and the Bayona pumping plant. VFDs are variable frequency drives. They allow the pumps to throttle up and down at various speeds, thereby rendering them more efficient and not basically just an on and off or constant speed. So they're important to the operation of these pump plants, and these pump plants see in the order of 30 million gallons a day of flow. So they're very critical to the operation of the city. So the project was advertised on May 29th with bids due on July 10th. We received a lot of questions the week of June 24th, and normally we would have been able to turn the questions around and respond via addenda quickly. However, due to the technical nature of these questions and the requirement to go back to the sole source vendor, who is Rockwell, they're going to be providing the VFDs, we had to verify a lot of technical information that came from the bidders to go back to Rockwell. Unfortunately, Rockwell did not get back to us in a day or two like we would have liked. So we finally got all the answers from Rockwell last week. And at that point, we didn't think it was prudent to send an addenda out with that amount of information, because what that would have done is the bidders would have probably not been able to address all the changes in the documents, which means that they would have either not bid on the contract or their bids would have been probably rushed and inaccurate. So we didn't want to chance that. So we'd like to do an extension of 2 weeks. to give the bidders sufficient time to prepare their bids with this additional technical information. And I have verified with the Bureau of Sanitation that a 2-week extension is not going to be detrimental to the operation of the facilities or cause any problems for them. So.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Cirillo. And the 2-week extension will be enough for the bidders as well?
Yes, the 2 weeks will provide them sufficient time to prepare their bids with the additional technical information.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Cabello.
Thank you, President James. I'd just like you to state for the record why the VFD equipment is being sole sourced. I'm sure there's a very good justification,
Yeah.
but it's just good to be stating that for the record.
Yeah, we're matching existing equipment in a lot of areas. They already have Rockwell VFDs. Staff is already well trained on Rockwell VFDs. They're happy with the performance. They have spare parts already, necessary for the replacement of those VFDs. So typically when you have pump stations with one type of equipment and they break down, you tend to replace with the same kind for consistency and continuity.
Thank you. Anything further? Okay, I'll make a motion that we adopt special item number 1, seconded by Commissioners Caloza and Davis. Any objection? Without objection, we'll adopt special item number 1. Thank you, Mr. Cirillo. Any issue sending it forthwith? We will send it forthwith. That concludes the business we have in the special meeting, so we'll adjourn the special meeting. Return to our regular meeting. Dr. Campos, you can call the roll in the regular meeting again.
Roll call for the regular meeting. Reopening up the regular meeting today for Monday, July 8th, 2019. We have Commissioner Cabello, James, Davis, and Caloza. President James, you do have a quorum.
Okay, on agenda item number 1 today, requested contract acceptance, Council District 3, Van Owen Street Bridge widening over Bull Creek Bridge, number F3C-1361. Recommended that we accept the contract, first of all. Secondly, assess HIPA Engineering with a penalty in the amount of $8,070 for the unauthorized subcontractor substitution of one bid-listed DBE subcontractor. And third, instruct the Director of the Office of Accounting to disencumber the recommended city penalty in the amount of $8,070 from the project to be retained by the city. This was continued from Wednesday, June 19th, 2019. Ms. Lau, we'll start with you. I was out of the country on that day, so apologize for the inconvenience to everyone, but if you could give me kind of a summary of the presentation. We'll see if we have anything from Ms. McGlinchey on this item again before we hear from our speaker. Go ahead.
Yes, this project, just to give some background, this project provided rehabilitation and widening of an existing bridge deck on the Van Owen Street Bridge over Bull Creek. And during the presentation last time on June 19th, I think the question of the item that is in question for the penalty is related to survey. So HIPA Engineering came out and discussed that there was city survey performed on this project. So I want to first clarify that issue. There were actually 3 groups of survey performed on this project. First, the city survey, BOE survey group, they came and provided control in the beginning of the project. The item in question, which was $10,000 on the bid, it was for HIPA to perform construction surveying, which they performed during the length of the project. The third surveying, which was performed at the request of BOE, and we issued that through our consultants, was for quality assurance survey. So the only surveying that is in question is actually the $10,000 that was on the bid item. Now, according to the Bureau of Contract Administration, there was unauthorized subcontractor substitution, and that's why they're assessed the $8,070. And if I can answer any other questions related to that day from the other commissioners who were here, I believe the survey was one of the main items that was in contention.
Okay. This project received federal funding, correct?
Correct. This is a federally funded project.
Okay. Ms. McGlinchey? Federally funded projects, so we're dealing with DBEs. And are there restrictions? Well, I mean, I know the answer to the question, but I'm setting forth a record. There are restrictions regarding federally funded projects on what we can do even when we come to the assessment of penalties, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
And if we don't, if those that review the project determine that we have swayed from the bounds within which we are to operate, we could lose the federal funding, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Between the two of you, was there some aspect of the surveying question that occurred on June 19th that was left unclear that you're able to clear up today?
The question was whether other parties performed the survey work, because HIPAA had discussed that city performed survey work, and so that's why I had discussed there were 3 actual surveys performed, one by BOE City Survey,
Right.
One by HIPAA, and then one by our consultant who subbed it out to Wagner Engineering. So,
And those are the 3 various surveys?
yes, the 3 types of surveys performed.
Okay. All right. Any questions, colleagues, before we move to the speaker? Commissioner Cabello?
Just quickly, the survey in question that we're discussing right now is the second one you mentioned, which is the construction survey.
Correct.
And just so, for the record, to remind folks, the issue was that HIPAA claimed to have had a subcontractor, but then we had documentation which stated they performed that work themselves. Is that correct?
Correct. So HIPAA had indicated a disadvantaged business enterprise to perform that survey work under the bid item. However, instead of requesting for a substitution, HIPAA performed the work themselves.
And HIPAA is claiming that the city performed that work.
I assume that was what the discussion was.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you. Any more questions before we go to Mr. Modazzati? Okay. Matt Modazzetti?
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Good morning, everybody. I just want to mention that HIPAA Engineering is absolutely the smallest contractor working for the city of Los Angeles. And I myself personally have a long history of working with the city of Los Angeles. At no point we have ever disputed anything or being in opposition to the city. This is the very first time I'm here, to be honest with you, after so many decades of working with the city. And I'm ashamed to be here, for this $8,000. But this $8,000, we worked for really, really hard. This project was infested with so many change orders and unforeseen conditions. And through some extensive negotiations with the city, we came to the conclusion that how we're going to wrap all these issues up. And then apparently the project didn't have enough funding, and we had to wait for more than a year or so, while we funded this project, hundreds of thousands of dollars. And my understanding is that there is a state law that we are entitled to a interest on the money for late payment. We never invoked that law, and we are not requesting for that. While also for this, the project was done like about more than 2 years ago. We are going back and forth still, and the cost of doing business with the city of Los Angeles is probably that we have spent already a couple of times more than this amount on the time that we have been back and forth with the city providing all kinds of documentation. And it was totally unforeseen for us to predict how much time and effort we have to put into this thing. There are items on the contract. As an instance, I'm telling you what's going on. Item number 8, remove asphalt, item number 9, grind and remove asphalt concrete. The item is for thickness of, I believe, if I remember correctly, for 2 inches, but we were instructed to do more, 3 inches or so. And there is no other item in the contract. So the inspector on the site had to make compensation somehow to make this thing works. And I believe probably one of the items involved with this item was that surveying work. And the surveyor on the job, he was unfortunately ashamed to say that he was dishonest. He was billing us, sending us invoices for work that they never performed. And nonetheless, toward the end of the project, we had to somehow get him involved and get that $10,000 to him. That's why we told him to come and get this job done, but the city last minute told us that, he's going to bring his own consultant or his own city survey crew to do the work. This project is federally funded, but to my understanding is that 89% of it is federally funded. The other 11% for street work is funded by the city of Los Angeles, and that's the portion involved with that surveying work. Mostly it's that portion. At the end, I'd like to appeal to your sense of fairness and understand that for a small contractor like us going through such difficulties, getting you the best quality project, you can go to anybody in the city, in Canada, and confirm that the quality of work that we gave you, it's way over and above the other average contractor does the work for you. We funded the project for you, we finished it, and we are happy to work with the city, and we are looking forward to get more jobs with the city of Los Angeles. I hope this little bump is not going to create any kind of problem. And I appeal to your sense of fairness to get the money to us for that. We work for every penny of it really, really hard. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Davis? Mr. Morazetti.
Mr. Morazetti, I wanted to find out from you in terms of the work that you did. The surveyor, you mentioned that he was not forthright in doing work with you, and so you had some problems with the surveyor on the project. Is that correct?
At the very beginning of the project, he claimed that he has done some survey work. Anytime you call for a surveyor, you have to fill out the special forms and make a request for him to show up on a certain day on the project.
Sure.
And then when he does, we get logged in all the people that, we have a daily report very accurately who has been on the job and who has not. And also the city inspector does the same. There is no record of any of this. There is no monument on the job that they performed and they hammered the nail down and put a red tape on it. None of that. And the invoice comes all of a sudden 3 months after the day they claim that they have done the work. And then OCPS doesn't have any record of the subcontractor work because they have to file OCPS reports, for certified payrolls and prevailing wage.
Who has to file the reports?
The subcontractors. The subcontractors, they do.
Have to file the reports with the Office of Contract Administration?
Yes. There's a system called OCPS for all the prevailing
You're the prime contractor on the project, right? You are the prime.
We're the prime, yes.
The prime contractor has to file reports with Office of Contract Administration, correct?
So does all the subcontractors
But
involved
you
in the
do
project.
as well, though. As
We
a
do
prime.
that too. We do
Now,
that also.
obviously, and I was trying to understand the relationship between you and the sub in question. Basically, I'm hearing you say that because his work was not satisfactory, you had to dismiss him basically from the job. Is that correct?
We didn't kick him off the job.
I'm sorry?
We did not kick him off the job.
Well, did he stop coming, or?
No, it's the request that we have to make for him to come to the board. Most of the job, as far as surveying goes, it happens at the very beginning of the project and at the very end of the project. That's what the surveying work involved with the bridge construction
I
involves.
guess I'm a little bit confused, and this is the reason why I'm asking questions, so that I personally can get a better understanding of what occurred as it relates to your involvement in the construction work that you did or the work that was not done. And in trying to find that out, I wanted to find out, did he do the work on the surveying, or did you do it?
He did some work at the beginning of the project.
Did you also do some work on it, the surveying?
I'm a licensed engineer myself, so I'm allowed to do some work myself. But those works are not extensive works.
Well,
as far as surveying goes.
does that mean then that you did do some surveying work on this particular project that you and I are discussing today?
I did some layout
You
work
did.
myself.
So now, when you do that work, don't you have to give a form to the Office of Contract Administration to let them know that, in fact, the surveyor that was supposed to do the work is not doing the work? Wouldn't you have to have some notification to them before any further action could take place as it relates to the work, the survey work that we're talking about?
Not for layout work, sir. But,
I'm sorry?
Not for layout work, but for elevations on the street, the curb and gutters, yes. And
Okay.
that requires a surveyor to do a cut sheet and submit it to the...
I'm under the impression that as the prime contractor, you have some responsibility to notify the Office of Contract Administration, and that if, in fact, they have allocated a certain amount of funds to a subcontractor, that, in fact, those monies are expected to go to a subcontractor. That's my understanding. Is that a misunderstanding on my behalf? That's
That
what,
when we commit ourselves to a DBE subcontractor, we are absolutely making sure that.
so that is
it's
correct.
gonna-
My
it's gonna
assumption
get
is correct
satisfied.
in this case.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so having said that, would it be accurate to say that the agreement for this surveyor to do work did not occur completely, and that you did some of the work, but that there was no notification from the prime contractor, to the Office of Contract Administration about that change? Would that also be an accurate statement?
Not 100%, but partially yes.
Partially is partially
Partially.
correct.
You see,
So, and that's okay. So my issue here is that as a prime contractor, we have to communicate with the Office of Contract Administration to let them know of any changes, and that in fact, when there is a substitute subcontractor, which is what the understanding is, when you state that you have a certain dollar amount that is going to go to a sub, it is expected that a sub would get that dollar amount. And so I appreciate that you have acknowledged that that didn't completely take place. And of course, that's why we're here today. Oftentimes errors occur, and people continue to do business with us, but compliance is critically important for us to continue to do business here in the Board of Public Works. And as our president had stated earlier at the beginning of his inquiry, particularly as it relates to federal dollars for which we have no direct control. But the same would still be true for us if even it were local funding. We have rules and regulations that we would like to compel prime contractors to follow. So a part of our relationship with you is that we trust that when we do business and we indicate that dollars are going to subcontractors, that in fact those dollars are going there. And that if there are any changes in the project, that we can trust that you will notify the Office of Contract Administration. So having done business in construction in general, I know that you know that. And in particular, I don't know if this is your first project. This is not your first project with the city, is it?
I've been doing business with the City of Los Angeles, goes back to probably 1996.
Okay, well, let me just simply say I appreciate the work that you've done with us historically. And certainly this problem that comes before us today, it's very clear, I think, now to me what really did happen. And I think that you know that in the future, contacting contract administration is important, number one. And number two, you know that when we have a certain amount that you have indicated in your original forms to contract administration, indicating that you're going to give those to small businesses, that's expected, and particularly as it relates to federal projects and any other project, let me just say that. So that's why we're here today, and I appreciate your engagement to help us get a clearer understanding.
May I add something?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Davis?
Yes, sir.
I fully acknowledge what you said, and we are fully committed to comply with all the rules and regulations. That has been always our prime motive working with the city.
Sure.
But here is what happened is that, there's a twist in it. We were, toward the end of the project, that's where a lot of surveying happens. The curb and gutters, the asphalt, all that stuff is happening at the end of the project.
Sure.
The bridge is already constructed and all. Despite the problems that we had with the subcontractor, the mistrust that we had with them.
Sure.
That's what. Nonetheless, we wanted to use them. And I sent an email to them that on such and such day, show up here because we need you for a few days to do surveying. And he was in line to get going. The day before that he was scheduled to do the work, the city wanted us to terminate that since they're going to be using their own surveyor. So that is the main reason that I'm not in compliance. But it's not my fault. I cannot make decisions overruling the City of Los Angeles. That's your project. You make the decision, final decision.
Did the city surveyor come? You said the city asked you at the last minute to have. Did their city surveyor come?
Yes.
Let me ask Mrs. McGlinchey a question of clarification. I really do need to understand our process. When an individual contractor has been told by us that we are substituting a subcontractor for a certain job, whose responsibility is it to notify us? Is it still the prime contractor's responsibility to issue some notification to contract administration of the change in that particular case? And I guess, first of all, did that occur? And then secondly, who's responsible? Excuse me for 1 second, sir.
The So if a subcontractor is being substituted with someone else, then it is the prime contractor's responsibility to notify the city and get approval prior to that substitution occurring. In this case, I believe the contractor is stating that the city said that
That
they
would
were
be
going to
engineering, I would suspect.
do the surveying themselves. We've already heard from the Bureau of Engineering clearly stating that that surveying was separate from the surveying that was a part of this contract. If, however, that was going to happen where the city was taking that portion of the contract and performing that surveying, then a deduct change order would have been issued for that work, and we would have credited him for that when we did our analysis. So
So we
there
did-
would not be a recommended penalty.
So in fact, did this in fact occur? His testimony,
No,
that is not, his
No,
testimony is not accurate. It is
Correct.
It is his surveyor, not ours.
it was, yes, they did the surveying that was related to this subcontractor. The city had a separate surveying company come out at a later time, as was previously stated. That had nothing to do with the contract and the money paid
And
to
the
the
substitute work
contractor.
that he did, it has
Correct.
nothing to do with that. So, Mr. Matazetti, so thank you so much, Mrs. McGlinchey. That kind of clears it up for me, and I think that there is a misunderstanding in terms of accountability of where the work was really done. When you, a prime contractor, did any substitute work whatsoever, again, as we had discussed, there has to be a notification of contract administration. And so while the city did, in fact, as you've testified, given a substitute surveyor to come in, his work was, I think, more evaluative of what had occurred on that survey job. But he was not, in fact, the person that did that specific job by you. So the responsibility for reporting is still on you, the prime contractor, in this particular case. So I don't know how the misunderstanding occurred, but the fact that the surveyor that you were involved with initially as a subcontractor did not do the work, and the degree to which you had to do a portion therein kicked off your responsibility to have to notify Con Ed, and that did not occur. Therefore, the federal contract dollars that we indicated were going to go to subcontractors did not do that. So therefore, thus our discussion here today, thus the penalty.
The only catch, Mr. Davis, is that the very department that I'm supposed to report to is the very same department that instructed me to...
That would be the Bureau of Engineering, is that
No,
correct?
contract administration. The inspector on the site
Oh, the inspector.
is contract administration, yeah. He wanted us to cancel our surveyor and use, and they told me they're going to use their own surveyor, so...
Sure.
apparently they
So, yeah, and I
hired
agree it's a misunderstanding of what occurred. And again, as I said earlier, I appreciate all of the work that you have historically done for us, as specifically it relates to this problem, the responsibility in any change, particularly on federal projects, and again, I would say on any of the projects that you work with us on, the responsibility is the prime contractors, and you do have to contact contract administration. That probably is the bottom line on these
How could I do
cases.
that a day before,
And
the work is supposed to be done?
No, the
The
contract
very
has to do that.
same day, the day that the surveyor was supposed to be on the job, just a few hours before that, the city told me to cancel.
So that we don't have this problem again, according to the recent testimony of Mrs. McGlinchey just a few minutes ago, the prime contractor is responsible for any change to notify contract administration. I think that's very important moving
Absolutely, I
forward to
totally
do work
agree.
with the city of Los
I
Angeles.
totally agree.
That is what Mrs. McGlinchey just testified. So I just want to make sure, and I'm going to end, and I really appreciate our discussion here today. And I just wanted to clarify that prime contractors have a responsibility to notify contract administration of any change as it relates to subcontracts, as it relates to the dollars that we indicate we were going to give to subs. The expectation is, the bottom line is, that that amount of money must go to subs. And I thank you so much for indulging me in this discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Davis.
Thank you, Commissioner Davis.
Contract administration was initiating the change.
Commissioner Cabell.
Thank you. Ms. McGlinchey, just one clarification, please. In regards to any project that's receiving any amount of federal funding, the obligations of federal funding apply regardless of percentage. Is that correct?
Yes.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Ms. McGlinchey, real quick before you. I don't want to go over stuff over and over that we've already gone over. The only thing that I think I've heard from you, this all could have been cured with a subcontractor substitution notification from the prime and approval from BCA, correct?
Yes.
All right. And I understand that had BOE stepped in the level that you discussed earlier, there would have been likely a recommendation against any kind of a penalty, but certainly notification. And my message to the contractor, to the prime contractor, is this: yes, this is a penalty. It's a federally funded project. I don't see that we have any discretion here because of that. But it's not a it's not a negative review of your work on the project. It is a formality that is required of the process that's required by the federal system that we need to adhere to ensure that we receive the federal funding reimbursements that we seek. And we appreciate the continuing work of HIPA Engineering. Sometimes we have some leeway on managing these penalties and reducing them. We don't have that leeway on federally funded projects, particularly when they're so heavily federally funded. So for that reason, I would make a motion that we adopt agenda item number 1 in the way recommended by the Bureau. Seconded by Commissioner Davis. Any objection? Without objection, that will be the order. Thank you, everyone. Any issue sending the item forthwith? We'll send agenda item number 1 forthwith. Dr. Campos, have we cleared the desk?
Yes, you have.
Okay, then we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.